Hi, I'm Rossy, and today we'll be decorating a mug with this adorable Easter bunny using cold porcelain clay. Let's get started. To begin, we're going to be using this template and then just cut out the pieces I have here. Again, this is just a reference. If you feel comfortable doing this freehand and just start modeling the piece, that it also works just fine. I am using an old mug that I decided to paint over it. I use paint that's used for ceramics. It was a black mug before, and I needed a different color mug for this one since I wasn't using that one anyway. And I painted it, and I just had to bake it for the color to stay in place and it won't chip off. Now I'm starting with a little circle for the wreath, and you can either stretch out the clay to make the cut using the little cutout on top of it, or you can just stretch this out and make a cylinder the way I'm doing it right now. So making this long sort of like noodle and then just rolling it on itself until we end up with that circle. Now this one is roughly 26 centimeters long, and I use 2 tablespoons of green clay to get this amount right here. Now I'm just wrapping it around following that circle, making it a little bit flat, and then again, just the template is just a reference for you. Now I am centering it on top of our mug, and we can decide which way we're going to be placing it. That little place where both ends meet. And this is completely up to you. It won't really matter in the end because you won't be able to see that. And I'm using a little bit of glue just to make sure they're nicely attached together, and that is the same glue I use for the cold porcelain clay recipe that you can find here on the channel. And I've tried other cold porcelain clays before, the ones that already sell ready-made. I personally didn't like any of them. I didn't feel comfortable using them. So that's why I just have my own recipe. But if those work for you, go ahead and give them a try. And if they don't, you can try out the one I have and see if that one does work for you. Now we're going to add some texture to this little wreath here. And for that, I'm just using a toothpick. You can have multiple tools for this. You can see the ones I'm sharing here. These ones have like little spikes at the end, either multiples like 3, 4, or just one. And we can also make a similar tape for this. So just get a couple of needles, roll them with tape, and then attach them to another stick, and then you're going to have something exactly like this one. Or just use a toothpick. As you can see, there's really not a noticeable difference between both things. A toothpick works just fine. And now I'm also doing this towards the mug itself to help it attach better to the mug. You can use the same procedure to make sort of like a Christmas wreath and just for any other season as well. And like I said before, we're going to do this closer to the mug on both the outside and the inside to get it to attach properly. And then we're going to start decorating. Now, as you can see, I'm just showing what we're going to be using to decorate here. And up next, we'll be making each one of these. So we just have those bows, little Easter eggs, daisies, roses, foliage, and these pieces that I use sort of like baby breath. And we're going to start making the bows. And for that, to get this color you see here, this lighter pink, you do need to use natural clay, so no white base on it. And then just add a small dab of magenta acrylic paint. And if you need it to be stronger, just add more magenta. But using the natural clay will leave it sort of transparent, and that's the look I'm going for here. Now I made multiples of these and I have all of them ready here at the top. Since I'm going to be using these to decorate, I just want to have all of them ready at once so I can just have them all dry and just start adding them directly where I want. Now for these Easter eggs, I do want to add some little brown spots. These are completely optional. So you just saw me get a little bit of brown acrylic paint, add a little bit of water on it, and then just mixing that with a brush. Just making sure everything's nice and homogeneous. You can now use a toothbrush or any makeup brush you have, an old makeup brush, of course. And we're just placing the Easter egg here and then just lightly spraying the paint all over it, but just by moving the toothbrush bristles. You probably did this in elementary school or kindergarten or even way before. And it's just a really fun way to add those little dots, sort of like sprinkled on. Now I'm just setting it aside to dry, and we can start decorating our mug. Now here I have two different colored leaves and foliage, just so I can alternate them, so I'm separating them now. And which shades of green you decide to use are completely up to you. I just use sort of like a forest green and a lime green. That is the same color as our wreath. And I'm just alternating these all around the wreath, using a little bit of glue to help secure them in place even more. And making sure I leave enough space in the center since we're going to be placing our little bunny tail in there. And just placing them all around the inside of our wreath, on top of it, and also on the outside. And that's all I'm going to do right now. So I just sped that up, and you can see it here. And just so we have a general idea, on the bottom part here, we're going to be placing our rabbits, which is why I'm using the cutouts as a reference to know where I should not add any leaves and where I can add as many as I need to. So before we add the flowers, we're actually going to go ahead and make the rabbit's ears, just so we have those ready and in place and we can account for them while we start decorating the rest with the flowers. I'm just using a small piece of wire here to help support them, making sure our wire is as long as each ear. And I'm using half a teaspoon of white called porcelain clay for each one of them. And I'm just making this sort of half moon triangle shape following what we have on the cutout. And always remember that if you'd rather just cut it out instead of sort of modeling it, you can just stretch out a piece of clay and then just cut around the cutout. And now we're going to go ahead and add some shading. And I'm just using some pink eyeshadow for that. There we go. Just modeling it a little bit more. And now I'm going to use a brush again. This little, you can find these in sort of like manicure or pedicure sets. And I'm using this one to add some texture to the ears. Making sure I go all the way around, so the sides and the back of the ear and also on the front. Just around that pink shaded area we added. And now I'm just running my finger over that piece of clay to sort of start bending it out and blending it out. And now we have that curved shape that we need for the ears. And now I'm going to go ahead and insert that wire, being very careful not to let it stick out of any of those sides. And then just wrap it around the base of the ear, making sure we didn't lose that shape. And at the front here, we're just going to sort of fold it towards ourselves to keep that ear shape intact. just like that. And we're going to do the same thing for the other one. It's just that for the other one, we're going to do something a little bit differently, which you'll see soon. I'm just modeling this one a little bit more until I get the shape I like. So you can definitely make any ear shape you prefer. If you want to fold it towards, like fold it down or fold it to the side or any other shape you prefer to have on your little bunny. And now I'm just cutting off the excess wire here. We're only leaving a small piece. And now I have both ears ready right here. And just as a reminder that we have them both set right here. And remember, they will be backwards since what we're looking at is the bunny's tail. So the front of the ears will have to be away from us. And now I'm going to go in and add some shading to the outer edge of the ears. And I'm using brown eyeshadow for this. Just like that. Very, very subtle. And I'm adding a little bit to the front as well. Doing the same thing for the other ear now. And now we're going to go ahead and add them to our wreath. So the effect in the end is going to be sort of like our bunnies jumping through the wreath. So we're going to be placing the ears behind the wreath right here. So I just lift it a little bit to make the space. And then I start placing it right where it's going to go. There we go. And you can see why we still decorated the front of the ears, because they will be visible on our mug on the other side. Now, how much they stick out is completely up to you. I want that ear to be a little bit more prominent right there. And they're still not glued to the mug itself because I want them to have that sort of volume. Just like that. And I'm just adjusting the ears here. And now I can go ahead and add glue just to make sure they're attached to the wreath, not necessarily to the mug, just the wreath for now. Just adding the leaf back in, the one I removed, and another one right here. And now we can actually go ahead and start decorating with the flowers. And this is the only place that's going to be very visible right here. So I'm just taking that into account before I start adding the flowers. And now I always leave the little wires on the flowers a little bit longer, since I don't know which project I will be using them on first. And that lets me adjust the length of the little wire as I start working on the project itself. Like, see right there, for example, this one's going to be a little bit longer than the first one. And I just cut it off and place it right where I want it to go. And just filling this little crown with all our flowers. And now for the body, we're going to measure 2 tablespoons of white cold porcelain clay. Now for the paws, it's going to be half a teaspoon for each. So I just set that aside for now. And again, going back to the body, I'm just kneading that thoroughly. And remember that you can always choose to either cut around it, so using our little cutout as sort of a cutter, or model it, which is what I'm going to do right now. So just kneading that thoroughly, making sure it's very nice and smooth, and then make it sort of like we're going to use it to make a half moon. Just a starting point right there. Just like that, and then just bending it like this, just to get the legs. And now we're going to continue modeling here just to shape it, making sure we have sort of the same shape we have on the cutout. Making sure our little clay piece is nice and thick. So it's it's very strong and consistent. Just like that. And now we're going to go ahead and add some texture the same way we did for the ears. So just using this little brush here, going all around. Just like that. Measuring it again to make sure we have the right proportions. We haven't lost the shape. And there we go. Now we're just going to go ahead and add some shading, and I'm going to be using brown eyeshadow for that. And as I mentioned before, you can definitely use powder toners, the ones that are used for fondant. So if you have any of those tools available, they will work just fine for this too. And just going all around the body part using a light shade of brown. And just very, very lightly. Just like that. Now we're going to place it where it's going to go. And again, making sure we have that effect, making it seem like it's going through the wreath. And adjusting our entire piece as necessary. And now I'm just going to add some glue where it lays on the wreath just to make sure it can be nice and secure. And I'm just going to adjust as needed to give it more volume, just like that. And we're all set there. So now we can go ahead and make the feet. And as I said before, that's half a teaspoon for each. I'm just kneading that thoroughly, shaping it into a ball, and then sort of like a drop shape, making it flat. And I'm going to be making both of them at the same time so they're roughly the same size and they match nicely together. And just working on that. It looks like little kidneys right now. And we're also going to give them texture. So I'm using that same brush I used before, going all the way around, including the sides right here. And the little, like, if you have cats or like cats, you might know them as jelly beans. So those little, like, foot pads are going to be in a different color. So we are applying the texture to the entire white piece of clay. And this is completely up to you. So you can choose to use the lighter pink or the darker pink. Either color will work just fine. And as you can see, I just measured 1/8 of a teaspoon. I stretched that out a bit and then I cut it into 4 separate pieces. One of these pieces, we're going to use it to make the biggest jelly bean, I'm going to call it for now. And for the other ones, we're going to cut it in 4 to get out the smaller pieces, so the little toes. And now we're going to go in, just add some glue and start adding the little pink pieces. And also adding the 3 dots of glue so we can add the other 3 little pink pieces. And I'm just going to knead that thoroughly and start shaping it and making it a little bit flat and then attach it to the main piece. As usual, I'm just trying to make both of them at the same time so I have a roughly the same size on both of them. And now I'm just attaching them to the white piece, following along the natural shape we already made, and using tools to make sure we have that little curve in there. And now for the other 3, I'm just making a small ball and then using my finger to make them flat. They don't need to be perfect little circles since this is an organic shape. And that's that. So I'm just going to make 6 of these and then I can start attaching them where I added the glue. So 1, 2, 3. Now we have this little foot right here. And now I'm just going to use this other tool. Again, you can use a crochet hook for this or a straw, like a coffee straw, just anything that's strong enough to make that little dent. And now that we have both of them ready, we're going to go in and add some shading. So I'm just using this pink eyeshadow here and very lightly adding it to the pink pieces or the pink little pads. And just on the outside. And now, just like we did for the body, I'm going to go over the white pieces with some of that lighter brown shade, especially in this little dents we made for the toes. Just like that, going all the way around. Now that we have both of them ready, we're going to, well, first I'm just going to use this other tool to make that small dent, sort of like the folds or bends on the foot. You can also use a toothpick for this. You can see they were both work just as well. And I'm just adding glue to the legs on our bunny so we can securely attach the feet. Now I'm keeping them slightly lifted so we can see both the detail on the legs as well as the detail on the feet. And that's that. Now we're going to go ahead and make the tail. And for that, I'm just measuring 1 teaspoon of gold porcelain clay, also using white. And we're going to need a small piece of wire. Now the small piece of wire should ideally be roughly 4 centimeters long. And now I'm just going to fold that on one end so we have sort of like a small hook. I'm going to add a little bit of glue on that hook and then insert this into the body of our bunny. And this is what we'll know how much we actually need. We'll probably end up needing roughly just 2 centimeters in any case, but the 4 centimeters make it easier to just work on this, make the little hooks and everything. And we're only making this little bend or hook in order to keep the clay securely in place. So even if the glue wasn't too strong or the clay didn't attach to the other clay piece, the wire will keep them in place. And I just kneaded that thoroughly. I'm adding glue all around the wire and the body. And I'm just placing the little tail on top. Just like that. And again, this is going to help, the wire is going to help us keep it nice and secure here as we slightly add the texture and sort of like the fur definition. And this is especially important since we're making mugs, and if you're making them for sale, gifts, or simply for actual use, we do want them to be as strong as possible so they will withstand regular use, washing, storage, and everything. Because yes, you can definitely use these to drink out of them, both hot and cold liquids, as long as you seal them at the end. And I'm just using a toothpick here to hold everything in place as I continue to add that little fur texture and detail. And just doing that all around. Once we're done, it's going to look like that. And I'm just going to go in with that light brown eyeshadow again, just to add some shading all over the little tail. Just to give it a little bit of depth and detail. So this is just quickly sped up now before we continue. Now for the next steps, we're going to just continue and add a ribbon just to get that full effect, like the bunny is really going through our wreath. So I'm just attaching one of these bow pieces on one side, just like that, covering that wire on the back, and just any empty space we have where the bunny's body will be. So I'm just getting some more green clay here, adding a little bit of glue, shaping it into a small ball, and then I'm going to place it on the bottom right there. This is going to make it even easier for me to attach the extra pieces and accessories. Just like that. And there we go. And I'm just going to add the other ribbon pieces underneath and let them fall down the rabbit's body. Just like that. And now we're going to complement that just by adding more flowers. And if you like the way it looks, you definitely don't need to add anything else. But in my case, to complement the entire look, I'm going to add another bow on the sides here. And now I'm going to start adding in groups of 3 some Easter eggs because mine is Easter themed. You can use different colors if you're going more for a spring theme or just rabbits in general. You definitely don't need to add these in. But if you're following along and making an Easter theme mug, we're just going to add them right here where I left this space. I'm just cutting off the excess wire here, dabbing them in a little bit of glue, and then just securing them in place. Now here I'm also going to add another rose. I'm going to look for a bigger one here. A little bit of glue and it goes into place. Now with the foliage, same thing, adding a little bit of glue and just filling in the spaces and any gaps. And now I'm just adding any extra details that can help fully achieve that effect or the idea that the bunny really jumped through the hoop, through the wreath. And just filling in any spaces. Same steps here, just cutting off that wire, adding a little bit of glue, and just inserting the wire into our clay. And completely up to you. Just that filler content. I can see here those extra flowers and everything. And now just to give it that full look, sort of like baby's breath, I'm adding a little bit of white at the top right here. And I didn't secure that one properly, so I'm going to do that now. Make sure it doesn't fall ever again. I'm just adding those little dabs of white acrylic paint all over. And there we go. Now that we're done, it looks like this. It's completely set now. And we have our little adorable bunny tail Easter mug ready. So I hope you liked today's class. That's it for now. Once again, my name is Rossy. Thank you for joining me. Many blessings.